Welcome to the WellPlayed DLC podcast, Australia's juiciest gaming podcast, powered by SteelSeries, but more on that later. I am Zach Jackson, and joining me is James Wood
Howdy, gamers.
and Nathan Hennessy.
Hey,
Little triple treat for everyone tonight. How are we all feeling?
just dandy. So bloody keen to talk games because we've had a week off, eh?
We did have a week off. There was not much to talk about last week, but now there's a little bit to talk about. Lots to share, lots of thoughts.
That's it.
Swirling around
Feelings.
some heads.
Yeah.
How was the week off? You guys do anything?
So bloody good. Did I do
don't think
anything?
so.
No, I don't think so. I think
I just spent it. Sorry.
watched lots of television. James.
I finished Dragon's Dogma 2. That was my time off. Yeah. Mwah. Yeah.
Solid. I went to New South Wales, saw my niece, so shout outs to her for her first birthday. She's a big fan of the podcast. So it was fun to get away. See,
Very nice.
see Australia, see the country.
See a different part of the world, yeah.
See the world.
Speaking of nieces and whatnot, I held a baby for the first time in my adult life. I just haven't been around people who've ever had babies before.
One?
A real baby. I always imagined it'd be like holding a bundle of something, but it's like a little person. It's got little fucking moving
Legs?
parts.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Didn't care for it. Not for James.
Yeah, I was about to say, how's the magnetism on that one?
Yeah, no. I was like, oh, maybe it's gonna like awaken something in me, but if anything, it like killed whatever was left.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
More than awakened is fuck. There's too many appendages.
Have you seen my niece though?
I haven't. No.
She's a
I mean, look,
cute
this baby
baby.
was adorable. Like, babies are cute. I get it, but
They're not all cute.
I don't want it.
No offense to
No,
anyone
they're
out there
not.
with an ugly baby, but
Oh, could you imagine having an
But
ugly baby?
they do exist.
They
Yeah,
do.
let's not beat around the bush.
do you reckon if you're a parent with an ugly baby, do you reckon you know?
You know,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
I think there was a
You've gotta know.
Seinfeld episode on this. I can't recall.
What do you do? Like, no refunds, right? Like,
I imagine you just gotta pretend. You gotta save face in front of everybody, and then when you're alone with your partner, you can be like, "Fuck me," right? But
is that mine?
yes.
No, all babies are beautiful. We love them all here on the WellPlayed DLC podcast. So, I played. Speaking of anything, I briefly played. I think I might have told you last time. I put the Xbox Series X into the bedroom, give it a little bit of a dust off. I actually
Need to spice up the bedroom, eh?
Absolutely, I did spice up the bedroom. I because of the scratching impediment is causing some sleep issues for Anna. I actually was like, what have I got on the Xbox that I want to play?
Hang on, what? Sorry, hey, rewind. Is that a thing? Are you playing Penta with like the sound up and the scratching's like waking up Anna during the night?
It's yes. We're not waking her up. It's she can't go to sleep properly. I probably need to use some headphones, but I've just been a bit too lazy to kind of.
Wild to me.
I can actually, like, to be fair, I can see it because it is.
It's not white noise, it's a very specific, constant, harsh noise. So I get
I
it.
found it so bloody relaxing, but yeah, go on.
Look, no.
Just use some headphones, maybe.
Yeah, I probably do need to, but I'm just a bit lazy. Actually, it's more just it's laziness. Anyway, but I thought, what can I play on the Xbox? Like, what do I want to play here? I went through a bit of Game Pass. No, nothing's really doing it for me. What have I installed on there? Not much. I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's go back. Let's go back to Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Good call.
Game I've not played in probably 4-ish years, and I'm about I won't say a third through it because I'm probably not even that, like a 10th through it. But I got no fucking idea what I've done in the past. Game.
No, you'll need to start from scratch. Yeah, I come back to it a fair bit.
I'm powering through it where I'm
really.
I'm trying to. Now I'm at a spot where I'm like, need to go speak to this person who I've clearly met before. Not too sure who that is. So I might have to go back to a guide. Yeah, but that's pretty much all I've been playing apart from a review game, which I can't discuss at the moment. But
I really want to like see the end of Kingdom Come Deliverance one day. I think it's such a cool game.
I am
Yeah.
astonished that that game is nearly 10 years old.
Yeah.
No.
It'd be close to.
That's up
It'd
there.
be-
Yeah.
it'd be like it'd be at least 8 at the very.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Let's do a little fact check. But what I'm
Early
astonished at,
PS4.
yeah.
I'll look it up while you talk.
Well, yeah. So
I thought it was more midlife.
what I'm astonished about is just that studio has done nothing since then. Like,
Well, Kingdom Come Deliverance, if I recall, was
I know they've, it's been a bit of a feast of
it was a
content.
Kickstarter game though, wasn't it? Like
It
that
was,
was its
it
whole
was.
thing. Yeah.
It was, but I'm just surprised that we haven't had a Kickstarter. Sorry, Kickstarter, a Kingdom Come 2 being announced, or what? What is the studio?
They tried to launch a board game last year and it did not
Oh,
take
really?
off. It flopped
Kingdom-
hard. Yep.
for Kingdom Come. Yeah, right.
Yep. I mean, every video game's got a board game adaptation gestating these days.
2018 was when it initially launched.
That
So
sounds right.
it's a solid 6 years.
So I got
old
no
now.
idea then. I said 10 years.
But they have apparently been working on a sequel.
Oh, they have.
So, yeah.
Oh,
I don't think it's
Like-
officially confirmed, but it's one of those like open secrets. So,
yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. Cool.
Mm,
Did you ever play it, James?
yeah. I didn't. I watched a mate play through a bunch of it
Cool.
way back in the day. And yeah, like I don't think I want to play it myself, but I like what it is.
Did you
I
fuck the main
respect it.
character?
No, he's got kind of that ugly baby thing going on. You know, that's not a face. That's not a face you want.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Unlucky.
yeah.
He's
But
also-
good concept. So
that character's got fuck all sex appeal. He's a bit of a
yeah,
dummy.
exactly. Yeah.
Bit of a
I do
Harold?
wish we had more games though that leaned that hard into reality simulation in a RPG sense. That's a very rare concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mm,
think it must have done commercially very well.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it got a Switch port and everything, so it's been churning away.
Is that the
yeah.
the meter of
that's the bar for
success?
success.
It's got a Switch port.
That's it. Yeah.
Fucking hell. Very good, very good.
Yep.
All right, we got a bit to talk about, so we will dive into the reviews. Unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about.
Nah,
Let's get.
I picked up
let's get the shit
Skyrim
rolling.
again, but let's not
Boy,
do that.
Did you
tonight.
start Skyrim
No?
again?
I did start Skyrim again. Yeah.
Why?
What's wrong
I
with that?
was craving comfort food in the form of a video game, and I think Skyrim is one of the like primo. Hey, this is like I'm gonna get under a blanket and sink into this for the next couple of hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Once
still
you
good.
clear the opening.
Yeah,
I-
exactly right. Yeah.
What I find very impressive, maybe about both of you, but not so much me, is I find it very hard. In saying that, I've been playing Kingdom Come, but I find it very hard to play something else while reviewing other things.
Right.
But that might be because a lot of I'm very time poor in that sense. So
Yeah.
the only time I
Yeah.
do play is for that. But yeah, I couldn't be. Yeah, how do you do it?
I feel like I kind of occasionally need like an island to go to, especially if I've got a few things on the stove. Like I need something that's just for my enjoyment instead of my critical brain doing its thing. So
Got to keep that balance.
yeah.
Does it? If you're playing a shit game, no.
Hmm.
If you're playing a game that you think might be a little bit shit, and you go and play a game like Skyrim, for example, or RE4 or whatever it might be, and you go, this game is
Yeah.
fucking great, and then you go back to said like potentially shit games, you've just come off something really good. Does that sway you in one direction? Go, oh, this is not RE4. This is.
I mean,
So-
only if they're of comparable genre. I think sometimes it can play a bit of a thing. Like I think
Like-
Skyrim is a really interesting example that we'll probably get to a bit later. Like that is a very old RPG that reminded me of the joys of an RPG. So it's yeah.
Cool. Very
Hmm.
good. Nathan, you have been playing a game called Goblin Stone, which admittedly looks quite good. It's got some very
Yeah,
cool
it does.
artwork in it, and I was like, someone's got to be keen on this. And you, well, you took it on, and
I was
Tell us
keen
all
on
about
it
it.
past tense. Yeah. So the quick elevator pitch on Goblin Stone is this is in the vein of something like Darkest Dungeon, that being a game where you compose a party of up to 6 creatures in an RPG sense. So they've all got their different classes and abilities and items and you take them out on a roguelike run, meaning you start off in a kind of 2D environment. You've got your you've got your start point, your end destination, and there's various paths that you can take to get there. Those paths are going to put you in battles. They're going to give you rewards, events, and all kinds of other random things. The plot here is that we are goblins, and it's doing a kind of trope flip here in the fantasy sense, where goblins are normally like the traditional fantasy fodder. These are, they're like your level 1 enemies in an RPG after rats. So these are very often looked over creatures. These are now our heroes, and they've been beset upon by too many human adventurers trying to grind them for XP. So now they're gonna go sicko mode, break free, get wild, and in their sort of uprising, they come across the titular goblin stone, just out in the wild. Just this stone, they grab it, and it gives them the ability to amass together and form a civilization. Weirdly enough, they form society through a magic stone, and then this opens up a kind of Fallout Shelter-esque base management system. So we've got 2 games here ostensibly. We've got this kind of dungeon running. You go from A to B, and you got to try and survive this gauntlet of fights, because as your characters take damage, they're not easily going to recover, and if they effectively hit 0 HP twice, they permanently die, or they suffer permanent injuries. So you're always kind of managing your party, and you're making very calculated risks to try and get them through to the end with maximum rewards, but keeping them intact. When you get back to base, you've now got to build your base. And so, again, 2D, you sort of dig down into this cave system, excavating new levels and putting in kind of training facilities for the different classes, and a couple of other generic rooms, like a larder, which will increase your overall inventory capacity, and a breeding room, because you can breed goblins together. And I just want to... don't look into it too much. Like all the goblins are very much, I don't know what you call it, but like they're effectively presented as male. Like they're all kind of like dudes in a sense. They're clearly like, big long beards and kind of dressed as little dudes. And you stick 2 of them in a room together, and they pop out 4 new little goblin babies, and there's almost no fanfare to it. But all you're doing is looking for the ones with the best stats, and just
I'm not hearing a problem with this game yet.
I know. And on paper, all of this is really cool. Like, this kind of speaks to me. This is when I saw this and saw the trailers and saw these gameplay mechanics, I was like, this sounds really cool. Because this is kind of like that XCOM in between missions, kind of tinker with your base and see how you can maximize it. And that's all fantastic. And then it kind of doesn't really work that well, both on a fundamental level and conceptually. So the pros here, it's also really pretty, as Zach said at the top. It's got a kind of hand-drawn, cel-shaded animation style that's really gives this a very unique personality, which definitely helps it stand out from, it's indie peers, and it's a Darkest Dungeon-like game, so it's got that going for it. The combat is actually fundamentally really cool. So as you compose your party of 6, you want to make sure that all their different, like there's I think 9 or 10 different class types, that they'll synergize and work together well. So you want some healers, you want some damage dealers, you want some guards that are going to be able to soak up things, and then get them to sort of support one another, and that's all aces. That it does that quite well. And you get some really nice narration along the critical path as it's telling the story of the goblins. Sort of now they're going to try and emancipate other fantasy creatures from being beset upon by human adventurers and dwarves and the atypical fantasy good guys. But then we've got the flip side. So this game is heavily interface driven. It's a 2D game. You're going to be mouse and keyboard. You're going to be clicking around a lot of menus. Issue number 1, this game has no consistency with how your left and mouse button interacts with any of these menus. For instance, you might open up a merchant shop, and you might think, to get out of this merchant shop, I'll just click outside of the window with my left mouse button, and then, because that normally works in other windows, right? Doesn't work here. And then you'll maybe try and right click, and that takes you out. But then you try and press the escape button, and that doesn't take you out. You go to a different menu, which is equipping your goblins with gear. None of the mouse buttons get you out of that menu, but an escape button does. Or basically, the point I'm trying to make is every menu you go to plays by different rules that don't make any sense between one another. Standard video game UX design would probably dictate that every menu you're in have a consistent way to get out of it. And what this ends up being is you'll end up triggering things in certain menus that you didn't mean to. You'll go to right click out of a menu that requires you to right click, not realizing you're in the wrong menu, and expend a very valuable resource, because this game is very, very hard. So you don't want to be throwing away things willy-nilly. And this persists right through the game. So it's not just menus, it's clicking on map icons. At the time of writing this review, so after 3 major patches, I'm still having to click almost 24 times on some of the menu icons just to get them to respond. And that sounds kind of comical, but that's not an exaggeration. I will be sitting there for a good half minute repeatedly clicking a thing before it goes, okay, so you want to go to this destination, do you? Yes, please, let's go. So fundamentally, there's something not right there. And after 3 patches, it only seems to have gotten worse, not better. And this is a real thing that's kind of immediate. And it just gets worse as you go on. It's also super grindy. There's about 9 chapters in the game. I've played 50 hours of this game. I've not reached the credits, and I've reached chapter 6. And at the end of every chapter after chapter 2, it tells you to go through all of the dungeons that you've already done again and successfully complete the bosses that you've already fought again X number of times. And it's a hard game. So it's requiring you to do that successfully. And your failures aren't counting towards that. And so if you fail, you're getting set back further. Try and get these hard objectives. That's kind of shit. And that's adding about 4 hours on top of every chapter, at least, of just menial grind with no reward. You don't get XP in this game. It ain't like that.
Yeah. I assume that's also like whittling down resources and whatnot, right?
It's whittling
like
down those necessary resources, and you're losing your best goblins due to bugs and UI issues. You're trying to click an enemy to fight it, and it doesn't register, and you get smashed. And then there's just the base management. That sounds really cool, the base management, you know, being able to put you down what are effectively little tech trees. But the thing is there's a very limited amount of rooms. And basically, as soon as you unlock that, you'll be able to build it. And then you're basically not interacting with that base again for another 6 to 10 hours. So it's a slow drip of anything interesting that you can actually build in there. And so you don't interact with it most of the time, and that's a bit of a shame, because in Darkest Dungeon, when you come back to base and you're managing the morale of your units and getting them to recover, it's a whole thing that you engage with, and it's an equal part of the experience, and that's not the case here. So Goblin Stone's really uneven. It presents really well, makes a fantastic first impression, and they've got a big game behind it. $35 game. I can guarantee you'll get over 60 hours of game here. But it's so padded out, and the further you get into it, the more it breaks, because fundamentally there are parts of this game that didn't function at launch, and who knows how long it will be before they're able to reverse engineer it and get it working to the game. It's like on a fundamental level. When your buttons don't work and your interactions just don't respond, you've got an issue, and this is consistent. So unfortunately, another Darkest Dungeon-like game, which I was quite keen for, I'm only going to be able to give a 4.5 and just hope that 6 to 12 months down the track, it gets the love it needs to be the game it so clearly could be, because it's definitely there. Like, there is absolutely a spark there, and it hurts me so much that it's missed it by such a mile.
Bummer indeed. Bummer indeed. Well, hopefully the next one is less of a bummer. James.
Yeah. Yeah.
Broken Roads. We've talked a lot about it. We've promoted it on our talk through, and this is the time. You know, we had the rug pulled out from underneath us. What, 3-ish, 5-ish months ago?
It was at least 4 months ago, right? It was last year.
Well, I think it was like November, so maybe even 6 months ago, or coming up to.
Yeah,
but
very last minute delay.
It's coming out February. Not February. I don't know why I said February. Coming out April 11 or 12, something like that. 12, 13.
11th sounds right, I think.
I think it's 11.
But you finally got your hands on the review build, and you can talk to us about it. So let's
Hmm.
Let's hear it,
Yeah,
mate.
this one, it kind of sucks to talk about, right? Because we have been really big champions of this game. I think us, along with everyone else in the Australian games media, wants this one to succeed. And um, okay, so I guess the majority of my review time with this game has been spent fielding game-breaking bugs, which has been kind of just a logistical nightmare to try to finish an RPG in time for embargo when the first week you have with it, you can't progress. And so it kind of initially established this tone of, I'm not sure what is a pacing issue with Broken Roads and what is a broken issue with Broken Roads. At the time of recording this now, I'm still in the process of writing my review. We're only 24 hours, 48 hours out from embargo lifting, because only now am I able to start seeing the back end of this game. And I think I initially hoped that a lot of the frustrations that I was feeling were just bug related. And, the more of this game that I see, the more I'm kind of a bit torn on what they've done here. I think, if you want to start with sort of like broad premise, right? Post-apocalyptic Australian outback, Fallout style RPG with a focus on like skill checks and a moral compass system kind of baked into the core of it, where you can be like one of 4 leanings that give you options to role play or ostensibly different kinds of characters, different origin stories with short beginnings that are different from each other that you can play through. So it all starts in a very good way. You're kind of like, yeah, like this is a Fallout style Aussie game, and that's I think what a lot of people would like to see. And then, the deeper I got into it, I think it was about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 hours, and I realized I didn't know anybody's name. I didn't really connect with the world very much. And with an RPG, that is a pretty major part of the emotional experience that you're going to have with a game, right? Is that you need to feel a sense of connection with the world that it's building. And Broken Roads is it's kind of built itself as a relatively kind of serious, somber kind of. There isn't a huge amount of fantastical stuff going on in this. It's the Australian outback, as harsh and beautiful as all that is, and there's been a lot of talk about that leading up to this. And I think in one regard, it makes for a very unique game setting. This looks really nice. It sounds really nice. It's got really good soundtrack. The art direction is generally really, really stunning, very evocative, very vibrant. And the Aussie setting does give it a nice uniqueness. But other than that, the rest of it is kind of like a sliding scale of interesting attempts at stuff. So combat is, I think, a bigger part of the game than maybe it should have been. I kind of would have maybe preferred this without the combat, but it in and of itself is interesting enough. Turn-based, very Fallout style. You have like a small area in which you can move your people around, use a variety of guns and melee attacks. You also get a couple of like more special abilities that shake things up. And as combat went on, it does become more and more interesting. It just takes about, again, 4 to 5 hours before it starts being like, oh, there's some decent variety here. I think from the jump, it's a pretty standard affair with some very interesting difficulty sort of like spikes and valleys, and it's a bit of a strange thing in and of itself. And I kind of started to not look forward to combat encounters, and that's fine in and of itself in an RPG, because ostensibly you're there for the story and for the characters. But then I also wasn't looking forward to talking to anybody because, again, I didn't know anyone's name. I didn't feel particularly connected to anything that was going on. The role-playing elements themselves feel very scattershot in a lot of their approach. So there's a thing called the punt system, which is like an Aussie slang thing. Does that come from footy? Is that right, Zach?
Guess so.
I've always
Taking a punt,
Yeah.
broadly
Well, I
associated
mean,
with.
yeah, like depends on what, like in what context.
Okay.
But
Well, so the context is like, you take a chance on something. Like take
Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
always
okay,
associate
okay.
it with gambling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
Oh,
that's
okay.
what.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
because
Yeah.
when you go, I'm gonna have a punt. That's why when you were like
Yeah.
football, I was like maybe like
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not a huge Aussie slang guy, so that kind of tracks. But yeah, so there's like this take a punt system where it's like you've got chances and dice rolls going on in certain conversations tied to, let's say that I am more Machiavellian in my leaning on the moral compass, and so I get an option to just be a real asshole about something. And I get the option to take a punt, which might mean it presents me with, you've got a 46 out of 50 chance of getting this to work for you. But then you've got additional points you can allocate to bump up that number to push it over 50, so you guarantee yourself of getting it right. And those points are kind of on like I think they're on a like they return when you rest. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. I say I'm pretty sure because I didn't get a punt until 15 hours of overall gameplay. There are so many systems going on here that, again, I'm not sure if they just didn't trigger correctly for me the first time, which is why I didn't get any tutorializing on them, or they are just not very well implemented. The same thing sort of comes up in combat. The game warns you early on, some of this combat's going to be really hard. You can always flee if you want to. Doesn't tell you how. And then when you finally figure out how to leave a battle, you have to individually move each character out of the combat zone during their turns. There's no just flee a battle button. And so it just kind of, it ends up kind of just, it just wore me down by the end of it. Like, I think there's a lot of charm and a lot of good ideas going on sort of behind the scenes. There's some great writing going on in some of the small towns and locations you can visit. This is technically an open world, but it is, it doesn't really have much of a sense of exploration. You get to move between individual discrete sort of town and instances, like with combat, or run into some raiders or whatever it is. These areas are relatively small though, and it's all buttressed by pretty extensive loading screens. And so there's no real sense of flow between each of these places. And so anytime I found myself starting to try to invest in Broken Roads, another thing would happen where I'd be like, are you busted, or are you just not doing this very well? And that's a horrible feeling to sort of come away from this with, because I think we're all very excited for this game. The team is lovely. It's just, it's very ambitious, and it's very, even when it is working as intended, I never felt overly compelled to play more of it. And I don't know what to do with that feeling.
How's the consequences and stuff like that? So, you know, 'cause I remember when we played it, we played a very early look a couple of years ago at PAX at like a hotel off the beaten path almost. Not really. It was actually at Crown Towers. You can't get much more bloody on the path,
On the path than that, yeah.
We just took the long way around. But I remember that, yeah, like I'm trying to remember. There was like there were like a bunch of different options, and I think we chose to did we kill the guy in that instance? Or we
Yeah, that was
shot at
the
him?
like the guy that had shot his dad.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like a kid on the side of the road. You have to choose what him and his mum do. Yeah, so like
So they're much like
there
is there much wasn't a word of like consequences and stuff, or like of your actions, or they just kind of limited to that kind of their own little moments?
No, like I'd say there's a decent sense of flow between those things. So when I encountered it in my version of the game this time, I kind of told him to buck up and it'll be right. You just got to move on like an adult kind of thing. And then a couple of hours later, I ran into him in a small town, and he was
Right.
like, "I'm ready to be an adult. Can you take me on like an excursion into the wasteland kind of thing?" Which that's good, right? That's appropriate. There are other times when one of the first major settlements you come to has this whole like really great subplot about indentured servitude and slavery going on sort of within this town and their new form of law enforcement. And I learned a lot of this the first time that I got there, played through it sort of as intended. And then on my second run, where I was more of a sort of like shitheady character, instead of going along with the intended course of action, I'd said, no, I don't want to help out the mayor or whatever. I'd rather do this my own way. I got sent to jail, roughed up a little bit, let out of jail. Mayor approaches me again and says, "Hey, have you changed your mind now? I bet you have." And I said, "No, fuck you. I don't respond well to authoritarianism." So I get thrown back into jail. And then as I'm let out of jail, I'm moved directly into the linear story beat that ends the chapter. And I didn't get any chance to explore the town in my own pace. There are certain story beats it feels like you have to agree to the parameters of the narrative to be able to move within it. Because if you try to go around those parameters, it will just force you back into where it needs you to be to progress the overall story. Which I understand. It's the same way all these games work, right? But without that freedom in the middle for me to just do side quests and talk to people, I've suddenly got a bunch of story beats happening at the end of the chapter where people are like, "Oh yeah, that indentured servitude stuff." And this version of my character didn't know any of that. Like there was no way for me to have found out about any of that information because of the choices that I was ostensibly free to make in role-playing my own version of that character. So it just, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, basically.
Nathan, you got any questions?
No, not really. I mean, this is a fair bit to take in, and I think that point that James has just made is probably the thing that sticks with me most. And I'm probably going to lead on to maybe James's next point, but I've been playing a few RPGs lately. I've been like macking on Fallout New Vegas big time, and there are blueprints out there for role-playing games that we almost take for granted now. And like James has described, it's being able to be presented with a dilemma, make a choice, and not necessarily be then locked onto rails and girders as a consequence of making what the narrative would assume is a wrong choice. Normally we would take for granted that you get a bit of room to breathe, that there's going to be a consequence, but the world is not currently then locked off to you as a result. And that kind of sounds like a thing here that kind of scares me a little bit. Like if I am confronted by that, I immediately then question the entire nature of decision making in the game going ahead. Do I want to go with my heart, or because these games normally dangle what is a correct answer, right? And it should be consistent with the narrative. And I assume that's the case here as well, right?
Yeah. But the whole thing of like, we have this big like 4-quarter compass. There's no right and wrong. It's just about sort of like the utility of your choice that you make in the moment. That's all really great in theory, but if in practice it's like I can't choose to reject the choices given to me and sort of make my own way through these role-playing spaces. It loses a bit of that. And I don't mind linearity in a role-playing game. Like I think that there is a lot of charm in sort of, hey, you're not going to have 20 options. You're going to have 2, but they're both going to be really well fleshed out and well written. But the choices that you get here are the limited variety, and they're not badly written by any stretch of the imagination, but they're just not interesting either. Like it's a lot of, not even tropes, it's just very expositional dialogue. A lot of what's going on here, a lot of these conversations don't feel as if I'm engaging with people so much as plot points. And you also add on top of this, like the Australianism of it all is going to be, I imagine for a lot of overseas players, let's say, right, people who aren't Australian, this game's going to be, oh, it's a hoot. It's fucking tremendous. Like, look at all these crazy Australians. As someone who is Australian, there is like slang in here that I can't imagine anyone has said for 50 years. Like they have gone deep on some of this stuff. And that is charming to an extent, but it's also, and this is something that I brought up sort of in the lead up to a lot of the preview coverage of this game, is that like there is more to Australia on both the good and the bad side than just the fair goes, the beers, the kangaroos, the cork hats, right? And this version of Australia is very much one thing. It is a it's a fantasy Australia, essentially. Yeah.
Do you think that being an outback, especially remote outback, that I don't want to say they're behind and they're outdated, but you would find a lot of that older slang and stuff like that, stuff that hasn't quite been modernized, if you want to use that word. Like you still get the dudes in the pub smashing tinnies, using words and stuff you haven't heard.
Cowpoke or whatever they are. Yes, I agree. Broken Roads also wants to have its cake and eat it too, though, in that there are certain locations where things are incredibly progressive. And that's the part that I find a little bit discordant in terms of tone and execution of its vision of Australia. Because if you want to do, hey, here's this effectively isolated center of the country that missed the worst of the end of the world, and because of that, they are like very set in their sort of like traditional norms and ways and language. Awesome. But you also need to address like, hey, that living space might not be certainly comfortable for certain minorities, let's say. Like there are people that react differently to Australia's traditionalism, right? But Broken Roads is like, no, we're going to be like the fair dinkum. We're going to give you a glossary of all these Aussie terms. It's going to be like true blue Australian. and not really address, at least as far as I've seen, right? Like this might take a complete turn in the very back end of the game, but I don't see that really happening. It doesn't seem particularly concerned with like a particularly nuanced depiction of what an actual Fallout event in Australia would be like, because I think it would be a lot messier and more interesting than this is.
So it's kind of it's kind of friendly, kind of tourism Australia. How you doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'd very much agree with that. Yeah.
Do you think that? I mean, I think I've said this, or I've asked this before, but do you think a lot of people will be not misled, but disappointed by this? You know, because I think a lot of people over the years have been like, give us a post-apocalyptic game set in Australia, give us an open world outback Aussie game, and then not that they get this, but you know, they get like a turn-based sort of style game.
Yeah.
It's niche.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's a niche genre in a like in demand narrative context, I guess.
Yeah,
Like
so
people
what I
want
kinda
this
mean
story, but
do you think this is could potentially be unfairly targeted with this is shit kind of stuff, right?
yeah.
Because it's not what people want from that game that they want. Like,
Yeah, like this isn't like Fallout 3 in the Outback. It's
Yeah.
Fallout 1 and 2 ostensibly, right? And I think there are a
Because I
lot of people who
think-
don't play those old games for a reason. Like
yeah, well, because when you were talking, like, you know, I think for someone who has never played, or sorry, has never seen Broken Roads before, when you kept saying, and this is not like fucking James misleading me, you dog. It's like, you know, Fallout. I think a lot of people would think
first-person shooter. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I mean
right.
that's a very fair point. Yeah, so like an isometric sort of top-down point-and-click adventure is all this is really.
Yeah.
And that's
90s
not a bad
RPG.
thing. Yeah, very 90s exactly, and that's not a bad thing at all. I'm glad this exists as a swing, and I think that how people react to it, you know, like I like this kind of game. I like this kind of niche sicko shit, and I think its shortcomings are more its attempt to be that as opposed to what it's not elsewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, it's not particularly action heavy or it's not particularly flashy in the way that like a first person shooter is. I think there's broadly enough charm in the art, the music, some of the dialogue, you know, if you're into that Aussieism. Combat is decent enough. Like there's enough here that I think that if you're really craving this experience, you'll have a fine enough time with it. I just didn't connect with as much of it as I would like.
How, because I think we discussed this potentially on talk through, but how Disco Elysium similar is this game?
Uh,
As someone
I
who's
think
never
it's
played Disco Elysium.
yeah,
by the way,
no.
so-
I mean, mechanically, whatever. I think it's in the same way it would be unfair to compare this to like a first-person shooter Fallout. I don't really want to prop this dialogue up against a game that is arguably one of the best written things we've ever had, sort of in the genre. Like, I think that for that kind of narrative to work here and that kind of player investment to work here, the characters and the story here would need to be really punched up.
Okay. Do you know roughly how long it is? I know that we spoke to the devs about that, but I think sometimes those times can be quite.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think that I mean, honestly, I can't tell you at the moment. Because of the way this review cycle has worked, like so, you know, like I got to spend, let's say, 4 hours in the first couple of chapters and really kind of sink into them. And now trying to play them again to get it up to it in time, I managed to do them in 45 minutes. Like it's going to be the kind of experience you get to sort of, I think, largely dictate. I will say there's a point in the third chapter where things get a little, hey, go and do 15 tasks. Like it gets a bit like you got to go out into the world and really see things. I think your variance with that is just going to vary from player to player.
All right. And the last question, because I know that you played it on both PC and PS5. How's it go on? How's this kind of game go on a PS5?
Console performance was a lot more stable, but also more pervasive with a lot of like audio bugs. Loading times are a bit rougher on console. It's very much a mouse game. Not even a mouse and keyboard game, really. Like most of everything I was just doing with a mouse when I was playing on PC. On a controller, it's fine. It's just not particularly intuitive either.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Have you settled on a score window?
Anywhere between like a 6
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, we'll look forward to reading that review,
Mm.
which will be up now for those listening. Very good. All right. A couple more quick things to chat about. Both Nathan and James, you had the pleasure of playing Ubisoft's new Prince of Persia game called the Rogue Prince of Persia. It's another 2.5D or just
I think this
2D.
one's
I think you
pretty
can just go
2D.
straight 2D on this one.
Yeah, 2D. 2D side scroller. Nathan, you played for WellPlayed. James, you played for Press Start.
Yep.
Cool. All right, tell me about it.
Guess I'll take it away. So, what a surprise this is! It's only been a few months since we got Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which itself a surprise. 2.5D Metroidvania in place of the Sands of Time remake that we've been waiting for a while, and then we get another Prince of Persia that's not the Sands of Time remake. It is the Rogue Prince of Persia, and this comes from Evil Empire. So these are a team that I think you could consider a support team for Dead Cells, although I think they did most of, if not all, the DLC for Dead Cells. So these folks, you'd expect that this is a team that kind of understands how to do the 2D Rogue Light, which is what they're applying here to Prince of Persia. So it is a game where you will be going, basically from the left side of the screen to the right with a bunch of platform puzzles in the way, which are actually kind of quite damn good, fortunately. And little combat bits, you'll come across platforms where dudes are on there with swords and shields and bows, and they're going to try and knock you off ledges, and you can knock them off ledges. This controls really simply. So you've got like a basic attack, a kick, so you can kick dudes off ledges as you're kind of dashing through the zones. Being a rogue, like I said with Goblin Stone, as you're going from one side of the screen to the other, you will effectively come across pathways. Like the levels are laid out in such a way that there's usually an avenue for exploration. I think these are also randomly generated, as is the nature of roguelike games. We've played, I think we've both played 30 minutes of this, and in that 30 minutes, I walked away pretty satisfied, surprisingly. I at first glance, I kind of thumbed my nose at this. The art design's kind of a little bit odd. For instance, like all the humanoid characters. So the Huns have invaded the Princess domain, and everyone's purple, which I thought was an interesting choice. It's odd, and it's kind of fine. And the backdrops are very golden yellow, so you got this very golden purple color aesthetic, which is kind of odd. It's got this real
Sounds very
catchy.
Aladdin.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't put that together. I mean, yeah, it's kind of obvious now that you've said it, so it works. Like I had no issue. At first, it took me a moment. I had to kind of adjust my expectations. I thought it looked a bit odd, very cartoony. But in flow, in motion, it looks fine. Definitely doesn't have the fidelity of The Lost Crown, but this is going to be a Steam Early Access title. This is very much an indie title, which is really neat.
Hang on. This is a Steam Early Access title?
This is a Steam Early Access title.
But this is a side-scrolling single-player narrative?
For me, and I think Nathan will agree, it's not the genre, it's the publisher that makes me raise an eyebrow on the early access part of this.
Couldn't agree more. This is the genre that belongs in early access. Early access has treated this genre very well traditionally.
But Ubisoft.
What are they doing in this sandpit?
Ubisoft, yeah,
I'm
exactly.
confused.
This is not for you, mate.
On all fronts.
Yeah, you should be.
It's a confusing release. Like I think that, Nathan, you said from the top there, like that it wasn't that long ago that we had a 2D Prince of Persia that was really, really good. Didn't sell, I don't think, as well as everybody wanted, but it was very, very good. And to know that this was also cooking away in the background at the same time and is now gearing up for what is ostensibly like early access, being that like it's a almost like a preemptive release to maybe when the full product would have been ready. I don't know if this is just rush it out the door and sort of let's get our 2D stuff out of the way while we can. Don't really know how any of this is working. It is good though. Like half an hour with it is like, yeah, this is a good game.
Tight. I think, did we say this? Like tight is the term that you take away from this, and that's
very,
such
very
a positive thing to say.
Yeah, completely agreed.
But why No, just keep going.
No, go
Right.
on. No,
No.
like let's feel it out. What's up?
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
don't understand why this kind of game. Okay, like you know, you say that this genre fits into early access, but I mean, yes, it's probably more so the publisher, but why isn't this sure?
Well, I think the idea is that I think they talked about wanting to do early access as a means of a game like this that kind of lives and dies on player feel. And I think that if you have a constant source of reactive player feedback, you can tweak and adjust as you progress down the line of development. And for an indie studio, I love that. I just,
It's worked for these 2D roguelikes. Dead Cells is a perfect example of this.
Mm, right.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
carry on,
This
please.
is not what we expected on any level. It's also buoyed by a soundtrack that is really quite catchy. It's
Incredible.
it's a southeastern soundtrack. So picture your I'm saying this for the folks in the room that have no idea. You're kind of Indian and down to Middle Eastern kind of tunes with a very much a drum and bass dubstep lick through it, which
Very
sounds
dubsteppy.
awful on paper.
But then you get in there, and like as that thing is just going like, and you're just constantly killing people, it just clicks. There's a reason this team has the pedigree that they do, right? Like Dead Cells is impeccable. This continues to feel like, yeah, this will probably be really, really good.
Yeah, right.
While you're doing all this, you're doing all the things that you would expect from a game from a team that worked on Dead Cells. So you're picking up boons, which are modifying the way that you do things. So for me, I picked up boons that meant that as I wall run, so basically as you're going through these levels, if there's a background texture to what you're seeing that's not just the open desert, like it's some doors and walls and stuff, you could just very easily just wall run across or up that, and it feels so bloody smooth to do so. It opens up so much more agility and movement because you can chain that into a wall jump that repeats and up a chimney, and off you go, and now you're sliding down a slope and dodging a pit, and these really extensive platforming sequences open up that, again, like I said, these must be randomly generated, but are so intricate that they feel hand designed. They feel like rich, challenging platforming puzzles that have full intent behind them. And yeah, you'll be constantly finding treasure chests, unlocking new gear. When you die, you've got a necklace called a bowler that sends you to kind of rewinds time, because that's the prince's thing. Puts him in this place called the Oasis, which is your between run hub. So I imagine we didn't see anything in this at the time of playing, but I imagine you'll fill it up with like vendors and merchants and blacksmiths and shit that will give you permanent improvements as you begin your next run. Because you've died, you begin your next run effectively naked. And then you got to build it all up again, get better weapons, get better boons, fight bosses. It's really
very
hard.
roguelike-y.
Very roguelike. You've heard it all.
It is
before.
that game. Yeah.
But I would never, ever, ever have been excited for the Prince of Persia license to be applied to this. And I've walked away after 30 minutes going, I take my hat off. Shit seems fine. Go for it. What do you reckon, James?
Yeah, no, I broadly agree. I don't like roguelikes, that they're not my preferred genre at all.
I quite like them some.
Yeah, but it balances out.
nice.
It's fine. Yeah. But yeah, no, it just controlled really well. It's the same thing I felt when I came away from the preview of The Lost Crown, where it was like, oh, they've got something here.
Yeah.
So good feeling. I'll say on the wall running, actually, I'm so used to those backdrops just being purely backdrops that I would constantly forget that I could skirmish up them. And I think it's a really clever use of the space in a way I haven't really seen before in a game. Like it's very, very clever.
It was a real chef's kiss moment for me when I thought that, and it just, because the game controls so smooth, you just pick up the controller and it responds in a way that's intuitive. Being able to just roll run on virtually any background surface, which is something you never interact with in a 2D game, feels so bloody good.
Nice
Your
one.
preview event. Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Your preview event would have been on Parsec as well, on whatever, the Ubisoft Connect as well, right? Did you do
Ubisoft
remote?
Connect, yeah.
Yeah, that's even over a remote play session. It felt incredible.
I can't get that in my own house. Like if I try and
Yeah.
stream from my computer to my
Exactly.
phone with a controller, I can't play like a fast-paced live motion game like that without some kind of input lag. This was, whatever you do at Ubisoft, bloody brilliant. Let the rest of us have it.
Does it have a date? by the way?
That's a good
No.
question, isn't it? I feel like I
Did
an
we
email
get
about this.
confirmation of the early access date? Information was a little light at the time of the event, I'll admit.
That's all right. Look,
It was.
that's all right. We'll we'll read that information in your
It's all
preview.
right.
if
We're
it's,
learning into it now. Oh no, this is just about assets. Never mind.
It's
Well-
May 14,
Hey.
Oh, okay.
so right around the corner.
So early access just on PC? Question mark.
That's what
Yeah.
we've been told. Okay, so just Steam early access. I think it's inevitable that when this goes through, it comes out the end of early access, it'll get a simultaneous console release.
Yeah,
That's
for
only
sure.
a Nathan inference. That's nothing Ubisoft have said to us. That's just reading the room.
Seems very unlike Ubi to kind of want to give this out to everybody. Anyway, we've already gone on there.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah.
Let's push forward. All right, before we dive into the next thing, we're going to take a quick break and hear from Mr. Whaling, who's going to give a little shout out from our sponsors, SteelSeries.
SteelSeries is renowned for its innovative and award-winning products that elevate your gaming performance and experience, and the new range of Alias microphones are no exception. Alias microphones feature a capsule that is 3 times larger than most microphones on the market, giving your recording richer and deeper audio. And with the free-to-use Sonar software, AI-enhanced noise cancellation eliminates the background noise that other cardioid microphones will capture. With Sonar, SteelSeries has tailor-made an audio suite that offers the complete solution for content creators who want to manage their EQ levels, personal and stream mix, and it works seamlessly with programs such as OBS and many, many more. Available now, Alias Microphones and Sonar features everything you need to take your content creation to the next level.
Thank you once again, Mr. Whaling and SteelSeries for sponsoring the WellPlayed DLC podcast. Check out the Alias range of microphones if you're looking for a, microphone. Anyway, let's go to another review that's very, very exciting. This will be a little bit briefer because we will have a dedicated WellPlayed VHS episode for this where we can go into more thoughts and detail. But James, and maybe Nathan, but at least with James has reviewed the Fallout TV show series. Nathan, have you seen the whole thing?
3/4.
Okay, cool. Unfortunately, I've not managed to find time to watch any yet. I was too busy hanging with a cute baby. But James, you've seen all
8 episodes.
8 episodes.
Yeah, crammed those into a weekend.
Give us a little short rundown on that.
Fallout is an Amazon Prime original series. This is coming by way of Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan, who are sort of the executive producer, writer, director powerhouse behind Westworld, which a lot of people broadly agree its first season is one of the best seasons of television ever made. I think it continues to be really good after that. A lot of people don't, whatever, have your opinions. So, coming into it, you've got a sort of a powerhouse of a TV executive setup. You've also got Bethesda being really heavily involved. Todd Howard's fingerprints are all over this thing. It is very much primed to be the what is it? What do they call good TV? There's like a term for it that I'm blanking on right now. Like HBO stuff.
Prestige?
Prestige. Thank you. Yeah, sorry.
But before we go, can I have a question for you? If you were making a TV show, whose fingerprints would you want to be on it? Whose fingerprints would you rather be on it? Todd Howard or Neil Druckmann?
Oh, well, I mean,
A devil's dilemma there.
that really is Todd Howard. Let's go with Todd Howard.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm feeling sympathetic because of my Skyrim playing. It's primed to be the Prestige kind of adaptation that I think a lot of people have wanted for a long time. Like the idea of Fallout in live action is very appealing. It's a franchise that is just overflowing with iconography and imagery and storytelling that you could very easily port over one-to-one. What they've made is
I have a very, very quick question. I know sorry, I know. I just wanted to just clarify for my own sake a little bit. I think I know the answer, but as we discussed before, this is Bethesda Fallout. So we are talking kind of Fallout 3 onwards. So
Fallout 3, Fallout 4.
Yeah, so we're not talking
Fallout
about Fallout
76.
2 or 1.
Yeah,
Definitely.
cool.
no. Well,
Barely
I
New
mean, like,
Vegas.
I mean, I don't really. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, it is Bethesda Fallout, right? And
Okay.
I think that if you are a fan of Bethesda's version of Fallout, you will probably very much enjoy Amazon Prime's Fallout show.
Hard agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is just crammed full of visual references, of really weird jokes, of hyper violence, of a weird amount of sex as well. There's sort of a lot of key jangling going on, in my opinion, right? So, like, yeah, like broadly, this wasn't really for me. Like, I don't think it's bad. I also just don't think it's all that interesting as adaptation. But worse so, I don't think it really functions as a TV show or that much. The Last of Us, for all of my issues with that as an adaptation, was a functional television show that you could watch from beginning to end without ever having touched those games and get relatively the complete emotional experience that you were intended to get. Fallout, and this, I think is probably a critique of Bethesda's Fallout as well. It's a bit lacking on the emotional front. I don't think it really knows what kind of stories it wants to tell in that world. And Amazon Prime's Fallout sort of ends up doing a very similar thing. We've got three main characters in names that I have in front of me. Ella Purnell plays Lucy McLean, who is a vault dweller who is forced up to the surface. We've got Aaron Motten as Maximus, who is a squire with the Brotherhood of Steel. And Walter Goggins is playing the Ghoul, and also Cooper Howard, who is a mutated bounty hunter gunslinger in the current timeline, and in the pre-war timeline, which we also explore in the show, is a kind of like failed Western cowboy actor. And across these three perspectives, you get sort of all of the expected Fallout beats. You get the monsters, you get the vaults, you get the bombs, you get the Fallout. You get Fallout as understood as a sort of a theme park version of itself. What you don't get is a particularly coherent or engaging story. Like, events will happen to these characters, they'll all collide and come together, and maybe they'll fight, or who knows. But it's not really interested in any of that. It is interested in getting you to the next bit of either iconography or slapdash joke or really explosive bit of violence.
Yeah,
That's not.
it loves
Yeah.
its notable shock horror moment of every episode. Like, every episode has one, just to make sure you're still watching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look up from your phone, someone's head exploded. And like, sure. Well, like, I kind of end the review with this note of like, none of these are really sins in the age of streaming television, right? I think a lot of streaming TV is of this quality, maybe even worse. Like, there's a fair bit of this that is obviously considered in its construction. But it's also not really all that interesting, right? It's, as a Fallout adaptation, I think it kind of really misses the mark. The spoiler embargo means we can't really talk about a lot of the details of what the show gets into, but it does some choices towards the back end of the show. And in the way that it kind of like takes the critique of American exceptionalism that makes Fallout so interesting in the first place and just turns it into kind of a wishy-washy bit of nothing. Whatever, that's fine. That's not going to be for everybody. That's not really what Fallout's about anymore anyway. I think Fallout 76 was a really great example of watching this franchise pivot to becoming like a theme park version of itself.
Yep.
And Amazon Prime's Fallout very much fits into that, right? Like, you'll have your thrills and then you'll never think about it again. Or it'll make you kind of sick the way that too much, deep fried food at a carnival does. It's not good for you. You might have a good time with it. I didn't. So, Nathan?
I'm not. Yeah, look, I'm not the person that this is aimed at. This is aimed at squarely at you've played the Fallout games and you've walked away from Fallout as really quite enjoying them. Specifically, the flavor of 3 and 4 and maybe 76. Like, those 3 games. And you have to remember, there's a lot more Fallout than those. There's 1, 2. There's Tactics. There's New Vegas. If you swear by 3 and 4, not only you regard them as your favorite series, perhaps even some of your favorite games, I think you'll walk away from this, you couldn't be happier. I think you accept those games for their flaws anyway, and I think some of those same flaws, like James said, in terms of narrative storytelling and being unable to kind of really make emotional stakes happen, if you're fine with those in the games, those are probably some of my biggest issues with the show. You'll look over those easy. You're going to love it. I made the same mistake I did with The Last of Us, where I played The Last of Us just before season 1, and I was like, oh my god, like, this sets such a high bar. This is so bloody good. I fell into over the week we've had off a deep Fallout New Vegas hole, which has shown me that series had such a high watermark when it came to writing that is nowhere to be seen in this show. But I mean, you'll giggle. I definitely had some laughs. It did some shock horror shit that I was like, oh, I've never seen them kind of push this in TV. Like, this is a little bit fucked up. That maybe do double takes. It's definitely watchable, like I think, but
Yeah.
if you're gonna marathon that shit like James did in a weekend, you will, like you said, feel sick, like you've overindulged in junk food. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I want to save that question for the VHS because I feel like that could go into a much bigger conversation. But
Right.
very
I
good.
like that.
Can I do just want to, I know I've been a little harsh on things tonight. I understand, but like it's been a rough week. I do want to specifically shout out. There is an actress in this show called, her name is Frances Turner. She plays Barb, who is a Vault-Tec executive in the past timeline. And I considered her performance to be genuinely very good. There's a moment with her character in, like, I think the second to last episode that I was like cheering for. I was so excited to see this show finally find its footing with something. And then the finale goes straight Resident Evil, the final chapter, with her character, and it's fucking absurd. Love that movie. Did not like where this show went though. So
All right, cool.
Oh, James, you got me keen.
We look forward to
Yeah.
reading that review. If we like putting numbers on things here. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
We're judgy like that. Any
We are.
what are you feeling?
6.
Yeah.
6 range.
Alright.
Like I don't really know. It's it's not bad. It's just not good either. Like it's streaming television. And like I can't think of a worse fate for Fallout than becoming this kind of like saccharine iconography fueled nothing of a franchise. But that's exactly where we've ended up. And I think that
Yeah, that's where it was trending. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think, I felt this way with The Last of Us. I kind of feel this way with Twisted Metal as well. Like it's all these video game live action adaptations that we're getting where we've spent decades arguing for the validity of video game writing. And then these adaptations just fall back on these fucking cliches and tropes and nothing incoherent plot lines. And I just, what a horrible world we've ended up in. We've chased this Hollywood authenticity for so long, and to have ended up with just slop.
James.
I like slop, but like, come on.
Like slop. I will say in Twisted Metal's defense.
Yeah.
Hear me out before you make any kind of facial comment.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my time with Twisted Metal.
Yeah. Like I think I really, really like the premise of that show. I really like the concept and the idea behind that show. I think it is very cool.
Sure.
Some of the writing and some of the acting is a little bit.
Absolutely. How you doing?
How you doing?
But I really thought they took that in a very, they took that adaptation in a cool, in a cool way. I think
It certainly wasn't like
the
held
idea.
back by its IP in the ways that Fallout and The Last of Us did. Like Last of Us, pretty straightforward adaptation for the most part. Twisted Metal, they went silly with it and leaned into it.
Yeah, which is good. And I think that's what adaptations should do. Like, get a bit loose with it. There's a reason. Like, the Netflix Resident Evil is a bit of a mess, but like, it is at least a genuine attempt at adapting source material, like to do its own thing with it.
Sure.
And Fallout is, I mean, I think it's more watchable than Twisted Metal. I think it's better made than Twisted Metal.
I'd agree.
But
It's also a lot more to watch than Twisted Metal. You got to remember
there is
those,
a lot
those
of TV
half-hour
show
episodes were easy.
You don't have
they
Will
really
Arnett
were.
though.
God forbid.
It's got too much risk for it, man.
Shout outs to the great man. All right, so let's call it there. James's review will be on the website. We will do a well-played VHS show very, very soon where we can talk about that. But speaking of shout outs in terms of reviews, Mr. Whaling has done a review for Buckshot Roulette. Now, this is a game that when it came across my emails, I was like, okay, I think Ash will get around this, but I'll put it in the Slack. You never know, You just never know who's going to pick things up. Of course, Ash hoovered this up. And he writes, a literal bang or bust experience. Buckshot Roulette has that it factor that combines a snappy gameplay loop with a stunningly low bar for entry that will keep you coming back for more. 9.5 out of 10.
9.5.
That is 0.5 off of 10. But it's like, is it a card game? It's a card game, right? I haven't actually.
No, it's a Russian roulette game, mate.
Isn't it? I thought he said it was a card. No.
It's
No.
it's presented similar to a card game like Inscription.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. Maybe that's where I got misunderstood what he said to me.
Yeah, like if you've seen the incredible card game Inscription, if you've seen any footage of that, you'll recognise that in Buckshot Roulette, which is swapping in cards for loaded shotguns that we
Right.
put to our heads.
Hmm.
How do you feel about that, James?
Is this also a deck builder?
No.
No.
There are, well, I mean, I guess loosely, there are a lot of like auxiliary items and that you can hoover up that'll give you like extra lives, so to speak, and shit like that. Like
Right,
there's
okay,
a
yeah.
defibrillator, like you've shot your head, you blast that motherfucker off, you've defibrillated yourself back for round 2. Brilliant. No notes.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I can get involved with that.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, that is on
Released on the day of Kurt
just
Cobain's
PC.
death, which is fucked up.
Oh, synergy.
I mean,
Was it
I mean,
intentional?
I don't know, but he certainly tasted the Buckshot Roulette.
oh my god.
Nathan.
Look,
I mean, according to Wikipedia. That's
does
not my
everyone
opinion.
like Nirvana here?
Not really.
Yeah, no, me
Is
I
that,
neither.
tried as a
um,
teenager.
I think they're overrated. Like,
Yeah, I kind of feel that.
I was going to ask you if a certain song was Nirvana, and then I realized it was Zombie by the Cranberries. So that's my answer.
that's a good tune though. That is an absolute wicked
fucking
tune.
it's
And
a
Bad
banger
Wolves do
tune.
a mean cover of that song. If you
Oh,
ever
really?
heard the
Okay.
heavy,
All right.
yeah, good times. Speaking of, I remember seeing Bad Wolves, heavy band, like, and they opened for Nickelback here in Melbourne. And I remember like a lot of the older people were sitting in the stadium. They were not happy when old mate was busting out some fucking screams, and it was great. But speaking of Nickelback, I'm glad you asked. I went and saw the documentary last week. Very, very good time if you're a Nickelback fan. Very, it's
What a
Nickelback
sentence.
Eras tour.
Yeah.
well, no, like it's like you've obviously got to be well aware of what you're going into. This is a Nickelback documentary made for Nickelback fans, made by Nickelback people. So it is very on the one side of things, but it's it's interesting enough. And they talk about like a lot of the hate and stuff that they got, how it's kind of affected them. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. So yeah, good times. I meant to segue into off topics, but your Cranberries thing kind of got me all juiced up.
I get it. Yeah. Slam it down.
That's it. We didn't even have a 2000 film of the week. We didn't even talk about that, did we? So maybe I will suss one out while James talks to me about what else he's watched apart from Fallout. Wait, no. Do we have any news?
I was just looking at some news actually. Like, obviously,
'cause
when we
there's
go
nothing
for
in
2
the-
weeks, it gets a little, messy because by the time we get around to talking about something, who really cares anymore? But we have some Xbox news if anybody is excited about that. So apparently, we are looking at a renewed commitment to backwards compatibility, sort of
that's
going
pretty cool.
on within the halls of Xbox. There is also reportedly a June showcase coming where a new Gears of War game will be revealed. Along with the next Call of Duty, which is, we'll see how we go. How do we feel about Xbox being like, yeah, we're really excited about backwards compatibility after not really doing anything with its backwards compatibility this generation for the past couple of years? Like, I know they were very hot on it when we first got going, and it was a really great selling point for the Xbox Series X and S. And then it feels like they just kind of stopped at a certain point, and now to come out and be like, we're bringing out a powerful new Xbox with a recommitment to backwards compatibility is like, yeah, but we
Is
just
that the
did this.
context? Right.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it
yeah.
was the context of a new console.
Yeah, well, it's kind
that-
of all flowing on from this weird drip feed of information we're getting about Xbox's future, where it's like some part of it is third party, another part of it is the most powerful hardware we've ever made coming out at some point in the future. We're also maybe doing a diskless Xbox. Like,
It kind
it's
of
a
sounds
mess.
like what I've heard every other, like the last couple generations.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, this is how I'm feeling about it as well.
Yeah,
believe
in
it when I
terms
see it.
of backwards compatibility, it's good. I mean, there's no one else can really argue. Like
Mm.
PlayStation literally doing fuck all in terms of that
Yeah,
shit. So
fuck all.
Correct.
anything is probably good
Yep.
at this stage.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I'd
Do
agree
we
with
need a
that.
new console? Probably not, but we've already
Yeah.
discussed that.
I guess the takeaway is we would like that without the condition of a new console. Like, just get to it, folks.
Yeah.
Let's see it. Come on.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, great. KOTOR remake is apparently alive and well at the newly independent, well, vaguely independent from Embracer, let's say, Saber Interactive. So obviously this game has been up shit creek for a while in terms of its development cycle, and now that Saber are off doing their own thing, what is it? Saber CEO Matthew Kark said, it's clear and obvious that we're working on this. It's been in the press numerous times. What I will say is that the game is alive and well, and we're dedicated to making sure we exceed consumer expectations. Yeah.
Sure.
That's it. It's like, yeah, sure. I imagine this is going to be a PS6 title at the rate that we're going. So, you know,
What I want to know, Matthew, whatever his last name was,
Kark. Yeah.
Karsh, where is a Quiet Place video game?
Is it the one about the deaf guy who could
There's-
beat people up?
No, though it was literally announced.
Hmm.
The game was announced. There was no details given.
Oh.
It was like coming next year, what it was, and more details coming this year. Haven't heard a single thing since that first tweet. Not a single thing.
Bit
So
too quiet on that front.
I was
then.
like, it's gonna link in with the new movie maybe, but maybe it's just fucking cancelled. It wouldn't surprise me at this point.
Considering he's listening, I guess he'll just take that on notice.
That's it. Writing it down. Yeah.
Uh,
Do either of you have any news from the past few weeks you wanted to riff on?
Not really news, but just more of a finalization announcement. So the Broken Sword Reforged Kickstarter, surprisingly, actually landed over 1.1 million Aussie dollars in its total.
Damn.
So it was aiming for 95,000 Australian to make it happen, and it ended up getting 1,185,592 dollars. So very, very cool to see a series like that, which has been around for a very, very long time, and still have such a strong fan base to get over 1 million. What do they call money in Broken Roads?
Dollars.
Dollary doos.
$1 million.
Yeah, I don't think
It'd
it's
be
anything special.
very, very cool to see.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool.
Broken Sword, Broken
indeed.
Roads, Broken
Dreams.
Yeah.
Indeed. Shall we go to off topics and 2000 film of the week? Do you want me to read it out to
You
you?
certainly should.
Yeah, go
Alright.
for it.
Let me find. I gotta pick carefully because I feel like if I use a particular.
I get it. Trigger phrases, you know. Raccoon City is like.
I'm still not over Pokemon
Alright,
2.
I'm gonna read.
I know what a terrible choice that was.
I'm gonna read the. I'm gonna read the Google one because I feel like it's the less spoilery, but I think Nathan will get it right away. James might not, but action movie. Okay, there's a typo in the Google thing. Action movie about a treasure hunter who is in hot pursuit of a mythical treasure that has been passed down for centuries, while his employer turned enemy is onto the same path that he is on.
National Treasure.
Oh, you fucking got it, dog.
I mean, you kept saying treasure.
I know, but that's
like,
the
well,
thing.
what?
Well, the first.
What 2000? I mean,
It's 2004, so National Treasure 2004, one of my favorite movies ever, to be in fact. Probably it would be in my top
Really?
10. Love that film.
did you get around the Disney
yeah.
Plus series?
Just a fun. I started watching it, and I got to like 2 episodes in, and I was like, nah. It's one of those things that if it ain't got Cage, it ain't got.
What's the point? Yeah.
I mean, I
That's it.
don't think it was picked up for a second season. So
No. But the IMDb thing was literally like Benjamin Gates, and I was like, well, if you've seen the films, you know exactly who that is right away. So
if you asked me who Benjamin Gates is, I wouldn't have a fucking clue.
Yeah, truly. That would have thrown
Is he
me
related to
further
Billy?
off.
let me read the IMDb thing, and you'll see why I kind of tried to avoid this one. Benjamin Franklin Gates, a pedigree of the treasure hunter family who learns
His
about
name's
a national
Benjamin
treasure.
Franklin Gates. Oh, fuck me.
Who learns about a national treasure from his grandfather. I was like, fuck, mate. I might as well
Yeah, okay.
just tell you what it is. How rotten do we think that is? What are we feeling on the
Oh,
RTs?
I think
I'd
that's in the
say,
40s.
Oh no, I'm going 62.
I'm going
Nathan
45.
Nathan's 46%.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought people liked that movie.
So you and me both actually. I
mean,
was quite surprised.
You know,
Let's have a look.
critical / audience consensus.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I think audiences had a good time with it.
So look, the audience is at
Mhm.
76. The criticals, 46. It is definitely a guilty pleasure, and 90% of the reason why can be summed up in 2 words: Nicolas Cage. There might be too many inaccuracies in the plot. The mix of the past and the present is naive and at times downright silly, but makes for fun viewing if you don't put your thinking caps on. The film has enough to keep you involved.
I think that's well surmised.
This movie couldn't be more stale if I'd been dug up by archaeologists. Like that. That's very good.
That's good.
Shout outs to who was that? That was Stella Papenmarkle from BBC.com.
Shout outs.
She's a big fan. She's probably listening to this right now. Anyone else watched or seen anything over the past couple weeks? Who's keen to see Monkey Man?
Monkey Man, eh?
Monkey
Yeah.
Man?
Very
I
cool.
don't think I'll see it at cinemas, but I'm pretty hyped for it.
Yeah. Cool.
Hmm.
Cool.
Hmm.
Did I tell you I watched Malum? Did I tell you that? Was that last week?
What's Malum?
Malum's a horror film about a cult, and the father is a police officer who then kills himself in the police station, and then the daughter goes and becomes a police officer and then goes and does a shift in the now defunct police station because they still have this old one that's open, and it's about it's pretty fucking, I think it's weird. It's weird. I wouldn't say I particularly liked it. I'd probably give it like a 6, maybe a 5.5, 6. It was super interesting. The ending is very, very fucking grim.
84% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's got
Right.
yeah.
Interesting.
I think you would I think you would like The Passenger, the one that we talked about. I'm not as
I played
convinced that you would like this, but I think you would be glad to have seen it, maybe. If that
Yeah,
makes
I get
sense.
that. I'm not going to be a melon head, you know?
Yeah, it was like it's one of those films where you go, this seems like it's actually quite shit, but I'm actually quite captivated by what's happening.
I get that.
Yeah. So there you go, Malum. I don't know where you can watch that. Where can you watch that?
Amazon Prime, I think is where I saw.
Amazon Prime. Yep. There you go.
Well, you can also watch Fallout. There you go.
Starting 11th
Smash it
of
out.
April.
Yeah. I finished
got moved
the
forward.
3 Body Problem on
it?
Netflix.
Same.
Yeah.
Aside from the fucking stupid ending, good stuff, eh?
Yeah, like I had a good time with it. I liked all the characters. I liked everything that happened, even if I thought the pacing of the back end was kind of a mess, just because it
Sure.
felt like those events to me were like, this should have been a whole season onto itself once we got past the let's say the eye situation.
Sure.
Just, you know, like, because I've been talking to a mate who read the books, and like the first 5 episodes is the first book,
right.
effectively.
Yeah.
And so you know, yeah, pacing issues aside, I had a good time. I am looking forward to hopefully a second season. I want to read the books now, so you know, it's nice to enjoy a Netflix show. You know,
I've got my trilogy on the way. I'll give it a crack.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm
Very
keen. I'm
good.
keen. I think Zach might like it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
can see it working.
I don't wanna-
It sounds cool.
I don't want to push him into it, but it's definitely got the appeal of that sci-fi weirdness that Dark leaned into.
Yeah, agreed. I also think Zach would just go like cartoon eyes over the main scientist girl, whose name I have forgotten. The one who does the nanotech. It just feels like a real Zach, you know, 10 out of 10 kind of situation. So, you know,
They really like smoking indoors, don't they? Did you know
they do, and they make it look so fucking hot.
Don't they?
If she's a smoker, that's a deal breaker, mate.
Everyone's smoking. Everyone likes smoking indoors in this series.
They really
It's
do.
like I've never seen before.
Yeah,
But like
hot
James
and
said,
away.
they sex it up.
They
When you-
really do. Yeah.
Whenever you're alive, okay, you're alive, but were any of you functional in terms of being an adult when you could smoke inside?
Sorry,
Not really.
Bring that question back to me once more.
Like,
When
could
you
you
function-
go? like you weren't like a baby,
Oh.
like or like a little kid, like you could actually go out and like a club for. I'm probably more talking about like being going out for a beer to the pub and people were fucking chomping on punching darts. Like,
Okay.
do you recall that?
No.
Like, we do. Is that something that you were?
Oh, do I recall that time when it was like a thing? No, not outside of visiting Japan. Like last, yeah,
Oh,
time
right.
before last I was in Japan, we were smoking in KFCs and shit.
Jesus.
Oof.
Yeah,
Lovely.
mate.
I just can't believe
The 90s never died over there.
Yeah, when I first moved to Melbourne, it was still a thing.
Really?
Yeah.
That must have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's fucking gross.
I mean,
Like thinking about it
being
now,
in
it's
Melbourne now, it's rare for me to even see ciggies outdoors.
Yeah,
Like,
it's super rare, eh?
oh, you're smoking the analog darts? Wow, that's
Yeah.
niche.
Yeah. Is vaping still a thing? Is that still going on?
Huge.
Yeah.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah, it is huge.
Apparently, it's a real problem with the kids at school.
Just like the
vaping in the Fortnites and
fucking
the
isn't the same with
Well,
like big
I see a lot
Logan's
of memes
juice?
about toilet stalls that smell like bubble gum.
Oh, great.
Don't the kids love Logan's drinks as well? Prime.
Yeah,
whatever they're
Prime.
called?
You tried them? It's fucking foul. It tastes
No
so
way.
sweet, something with no sugar.
No,
Ooh.
I would
It's
not
like syrup.
buy anything
Yeah.
with Logan Paul's name on it or contribution.
It
Mm.
hurts, doesn't it?
Not-
I had to try it.
Not that I have any
Reverse
like real
curiosity.
beef with the guy. Like he's, good on him. He's done pretty well for himself.
He's just got enough money now,
But
That's enough, Logan Paul.
nah, I'm good. I'm good.
There you go.
I am keen to watch season 3 of The Mire, which is a Polish TV show. Polish like journalist, investigative journalist kind of show. Keen to get on season 3. Oh no, sorry. Yes, I've been watching True Detective.
Okay, cool,
Oh.
cool.
As in the new True
The
Detective?
new
Night
one.
Country?
Yeah. What do you?
Okay.
Has anyone else seen it?
Yeah, I finished it. Me and April smashed it.
What do you think?
I think we enjoyed the journey, but not the destination.
Okay. It's not really what I was expecting.
True
I think
Detective never is.
No, I never I didn't look at anything. I just sort of knew that it was Jodie Foster. It was in the kind of frozen lands. Yeah, it's gone in a way that I didn't think, and it's lost me a little bit.
Sure.
And I'm finding it very.
It's very slow burn.
Yeah, I was like, it's for like a 6-episode thing. It is very slow.
It's glacial.
And there's a lot of nothing. I feel like there's like a lot of stuff that's just like padding. I feel like there's a lot of padding in this.
Yeah. Yep.
That I feel like I just get to the point of the episode kind of
But
thing.
the
Anyway,
performances, mwah, very good.
yeah, Jodie Foster's always been a bit of a. I've never been like amazed, but like she's very, very, very very good. Like she is a very, very good actor, but I feel like she's very I'm not really liking her character, which I think is the
No,
point, but...
she's a woman on fire. She's an asshole in this series, but that's the strength of her as an actress. She does a wonderful bitch.
Yeah,
she does.
She
Take
does.
my hat off to her. I thought she was the best part of that show. I thought they all did well. But yeah, there is definitely like plot padding issues and shit with that season for sure.
I really like the other cop.
I think
The
she's
female.
a UFC fighter.
Oh right, really?
I mean, she's huge. You can tell that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think acting is necessarily her forte, and she hits it out of the park.
No, yeah, I really like her character. Yeah. James, have you seen it?
No, it's on my list of things to get around to.
Where can you watch that one, Nathan?
Binge.
You can watch that and binge. Can we give a shout out to any other streaming
Bloody
platforms tonight?
binge. Yeah, it's get that hubble. Everybody hubble.
Yeah, let's fucking hubble out of here. All right. Anything else we want to discuss?
Give me 30 seconds to hop on my soapbox.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah, do it.
I've tried 3 times now. I went start to finish The Witcher Season 2 over the past couple of weeks.
Oh.
I liked it more than the first season, which I did not like at all. And it kind of made me angry. Like, I'm reading the books at the same time, and it's very clear to me that this adaptation, despite the best efforts of the actors and those involved, it's very much a Cliff Notes adaptation. And of the worst kind. It's like someone read it with bleary eyes. There's things that are in the book that are kind of like metaphors, right? That aren't things that occur, and they will span entire storylines around them in the most weirdest interpretation, just for the sake of shitty low stakes character drama. It's a series that doesn't respect my time, and it has the Walking Dead issue where the first episode and the last episode get all the budget, and everything in between is just a fucking real shitty. Might as well just be like a daytime soap opera. Like, lighting's bad, writing's shit. What are we doing here? Plot holes galore. I'm so disappointed, guys. It's not the. I'm hopeful that in our lifetime we see another adaptation. I'm about to start season 3, but I don't know if I'm so super thrilled.
I think I quit during season 3. I just said I'm done. No more.
It hurts
I don't
me.
need this. Yeah.
Question without notice here, and this is something that Nathan has brought up, but there was a movie, a game, a show, or something, one of those 3 things, that was based on Cliff Notes on like a extras kind of book about something. Does anyone remember that? It's like an adaptation about. Yeah, no, it's a very, 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 very vague question, but it just reminded me on something that I remember being like, oh, this is based on the.
There's a thing. It's based on a thing I'm not sure about. It's based on kind of a shitty theoretical thing. Do you know what that thing is?
I'm trying to. Well, I thought maybe if I said, "Oh, there's this game based on the Cliff Notes," you'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's fucking old, mate." But
Yeah, it kind of triggers something. Yeah.
I mean, so many games, like licensed adaptations specifically, are that.
I can't remember. Yeah, no. Anyway, if you know it, email it into cliffnotes@wellplayed.com.au. We'll thank you for it. All right, cool. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the WellPlayed DLC podcast. If you want to check out the content, go to www.well-played.com.au. Stay tuned for James's Fallout TV show review and Broken Roads. That'll be up. And Nathan's preview will be, for
the Rogue Prince of Persia.
The Rogue Prince of Persia will be up as well. And so will James is over at Press Start. So go check that out. Other than that, have a great weekend, and we will see you next time.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Farewell.
Avidas and goodbye.